Hey up everyone, Happy New Year. I know it's February, but we just want to say a massive, we made it. I want to say congratulations, we got there to 2021. And I'm aware there's actually a few people that might have had a really good year last year, 2020, but I think for the most of us, we can quite gladly agree it was a proper tough one. And yeah, I just want to say big up to yourself, because no matter what, you got this far. And if you got this far, it shows something about yourself, about your resilience, about the strength, about the kind of person you are. So if you felt absolutely minging and you crossed over and it still feels kind of the same, I know that feeling because January has felt that way, certainly for people here in Nottingham. But we want to say to you, welcome to episode 23. We've had 30 episodes in Light the Shadows and it's been a class year. I want to say a massive thank you to all of you for coming on to the shows, tuning into them, sharing them, liking, and most importantly, subscribing to this channel. Our aim within Light the Shadows is to reach as many blokes as possible. We want to empower them. We want to transform their lives. And that can be done through a plethora of ways. We've got enlisted, the Open Men's chat group. We've got a private chat group on Facebook. And doing these videos is a simple way just to skill you up and help you to hide behind a screen ultimately and just get something out of this. So today I'm buzzing. This is going to be pure fire. We're bringing stuff into this new year. So we want to get to the root causes of stuff that's going to be as a result of the C word, not see you next Tuesday, but we won't talk about it too much. But there's some clear things, guys, that we've been struggling with, and it can be money. A lot of blokes blow out Christmas. We just throw all our chips on the table and we're like, right, I want to provide for my family. So we want to say to you, if you've done that, that's fine. If you've got stuff going in your life, you've got real financial issues, addictions, well, February and March are going to be a good time to tune into Light the Shadows. Today, we have a geezer who has really struggled with gambling. And I know a lot of fellas that gamble personally. So we just want to say to Nick, we call him Gambling Guard because that's his name. Nick, welcome to In Light the Shadows, bro.
How you doing, Roy? You all right, mate?
Good to see you. Yeah. As I said to you just before, it's morning here on our recording. Because usually a lot of people think we just do it like in the evening, but yeah, I'm doing good, mate. I'm in a good place despite, the transition into tier 4, aka lockdown, I call it. But I'm aware some people aren't. I just want to play football, but other than that, mate, I'm doing good.
Yeah, good to hear, mate. Yeah, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, bud. So yeah, I just laid it all on the intro, and I remember seeing your Twitter account before we got to see each other or meet. So want to big up James Carter. He came on episode 13, I believe. He's just an amazing bloke, as you and I both know, for the viewers to hear this. He works high up in the NHS for mental health, and he's just so brilliant at bringing loads of different blokes together around the country. And I had the pleasure of meeting you. I'm so inspired by your story, because I think with gambling, like, I'm the sort of personality, I'm like gun ho, I'm all in or just nothing. And I have to stop myself from betting because I would be the kind of guy, like, literally would probably lose everything without actually joking about it. So your Twitter account, I hope it's still pinned up, but when people see it, it shows the amount of money you lost. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm just blown away the fact that you're able to do that, and then to get from there to the great place you're at today. I really want to just inspire our viewers. Can you just share, like, how, like, you started gambling, I'm guessing, at the age of 18, or you might have basically paid people to put a bet on for you. But yeah, man, share a little bit about what's happened.
So I'm a covered gambling addict of 12 years. So that was between the ages of 21 and 33. I had gambled before. It's like a rite of passage thing. I'd put my first bet on when I was 18, like just turned 18 as well. I remember it was a League Cup game. I remember the game, Middlesbrough Arsenal. I'm a Spurs fan. So I literally just bet on Middlesbrough because they were playing Arsenal, right? So no more thought to it than that.
I bet you on good odds though.
Like, 4-1. Yeah. So I put tenner on it. Used to get EMA. I don't know if you remember that. It used to get like an allowance from
Oh
to
yeah.
go to
You never
college,
spent it
right?
on stationery. It was all on
No,
going out or yeah.
yeah, generally, yeah, exactly, get out or whatever. But yeah, I put this tenner on the game, and I think, to be honest, the path was sort of written there. The bet won, Middlesbrough won, and it's common with virtually all gamble addicts I speak to. You win your first bet, and particularly when you're young, your decision making, the neural cortexes, they're still developing and still forming. So had I not won that bet, I may have just been like, oh, it's a mug's game,
Yeah.
just what it is, obviously. But it was wired into me at the age of 18 that gambling pays off and works. But I wasn't addicted straight away. It wasn't until I was at uni. I was 21.
Yeah.
And that's when I became addicted. Basically because I had access to more money. Again, with the student loan, and you get X amount deposited into your bank account from the student loan and maintenance allowance and all the rest of it. And as someone who was clearly, in hindsight, already on the path to a gambling addiction, that was the worst thing possible for me. And by the time I left uni, I was already thousands in debt. So
really, all right. So I want to camp there for a sec, because we'll get to the amount of money you lost and probably just flabbergast our viewers and that, and inspire them about how you got from your utter low to where you're at today. I call it the buzz. Like that win that you got when Middlesbrough beat Arsenal, and come to think of it, I'm trying to think what age we roughly are. I think that's when Middlesbrough on decline, because in the late 90s, Middlesbrough had Janino, Ravanelli and all that, and then it was
2004, 2003.
So they were trying to get back. They're in and out the Prem, I think. You get that buzz, don't you? I don't care what anyone says. I've said this before, I think maybe on here, and even as a Christian, like I came back from America, and I was back with my old boys in Lincolnshire. I was at the Greyhounds in Peterborough, and only putting a quid or two on, and I was like literally at the fence, screaming like, go on, number two, go on, like screaming like at the dog to win over a couple of quid. And it was because of the buzz that I thought, well, if I win that, I win a couple more quid. And I could see it like unraveling, like my person. I think people got different personalities that I think are maybe more susceptible or vulnerable to gambling. I know I certainly am. But you mentioned a really interesting point, and it was about the makeup of your brain. And so I've read into, we're going to get into pornography, hopefully in the next month or two on Enlighten, but like pornography addiction. And they said a lot of people don't realize that the brain, you can manipulate it to be addicted to anything because of something called dopamine. And when you fire a neurological pathway, it might lose the viewers here. Like it's like basically a road in your brain. And the more that you fire that part of your brain, the more it exercises it to open up the brain, like an avenue to be worked. And so like it releases then dopamine, which is like the feel good hormone. And it's just as powerful as being as addicted to heroin, I believe. So I feel like in the same way, like that release that you get when you win, it can be really attractive in a way, if that makes sense, like quite enticing. So
it's it's your frontal cortex of the brain. It doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So the gambling awareness, addiction awareness stuff I do is geared towards mainly like college and uni age guys and girls, really, not just guys, because it's a female issue too, but it's that, before the age 25, you're particularly vulnerable to any addiction, because that's when the decision making processes and pathways, like you said, are forming. So for me, that was a massive part. With the dopamine stuff, I mean, it's funny because I look back at my early days gambling, and like you said, if I did it all online, to be honest, I didn't go to like bookies, it was all just done on the phone or on the laptop. but there was massive buzz, you know, that you get from a win. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
But as the addiction progressed, you don't get that. And it doesn't
Really?
even matter whether, it doesn't even matter whether you win or lose. All I was doing, and this is where the danger of gambling addiction comes particularly, the dopamine, the dopamine comes from placing the bet.
No way.
It's not, it's not actually the win or loss is irrelevant. So if I won, you know, towards the latter years of my addiction, you know, when I was deepest into it,
Yeah.
well, if I won, yeah, great, whatever. I'm just inevitably going to put the winnings on another bet anyway. And if I lost, I would almost laugh about it. It's like, yeah, well, whatever. You know, you resign yourself to that. The dopamine comes from the risk of
Right.
putting 100 quid on, putting £1,000 on, putting 500 quid on, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. That's the dopamine. The dopamine is the anticipation and the risk.
Wow. Mate, that's class. I literally wouldn't have ever guessed that. I would always thought about just the fact that whether you could win, and if you won, you know that feeling, so you are enticed by the winning feeling. But it's actually just the risk element of actually just putting the bet down.
It's to feel in control.
Yeah.
Or well, it's a weird paradox between trying to feel in control of something by predicting an event, but also have no control. You know, so you're
Wow.
trying to, as a form of stress relief or whatever it might be, you're giving yourself up to the process of, cool, like it's out of my hands, in my hands, but at the same time, trying to convince yourself that you've got a say in how it's going to develop.
Wow.
So yeah, the numbness is the most dangerous thing. Didn't matter whether I won or lost, mate. It was the same. It was the same emotion. Winning was, by the end, completely irrelevant.
Man, I appreciate you sharing this, because like I just would have never guessed that in my life. And I want the viewers to really like get some out of this for sure, because I'm aware, as I said, there's plenty of blokes I know that bet for sure. I wouldn't like to point the finger, because I don't know how much they get on their phone and start whacking in on the apps, but my suspicion is that quite a few people I know are addicted. So can you just enlighten that kind of that self-awareness? Because I think, as I said to you, I think before we got on the camera, like we didn't want to go into too much conversation, but I think the key to any progression in life, I'm not even going to talk about addiction and make it negative, any progression that a human being wants to make in their life, if they want to become a better person, if they want to succeed in something, if they want to make an amazing career out of something, whatever it may be, or invest in a relationship to potentially be married or whatever, like I think self-awareness is the most important factor, because if you're not self-aware of anything that you are doing and the way you're behaving, the things that you say, like it'll have a collateral impact on you, or if not others. And if you're not aware of that, potentially can be toast. Like you're just going to be cut the wayside potentially by people, and then that will lead to isolation, because people will fob you off, lead to loneliness, then your mental health suffers, and then potentially you get suicide ideation. So what is it with gambling? Let's stay on gambling. How you can become more self-aware? What would you kind of advise?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because I was in addiction for 12 years, and realistically, I knew I was pretty severely addicted within probably 18 months, at the latest. But then I still had another 10 years of addiction, to go. And I knew I was addicted, but it was it was two strands. I didn't know what to do about it, but also, like a lot of addicts who are still in addiction, I didn't want to do anything about it, because it was my, and I don't want to get too wanky about, like being more spiritual, but that was my like self-help gambling.
Right.
That was how I soothed my pain. That was how I escaped reality. It was gambling. So if I didn't have that, what was I going to do? So although I knew I needed to stop and it was causing so much pain and destruction, because money isn't really what you lose from addiction. It's connection and relationships, and the stuff you can't get back, right? Money is ultimately secondary, really. So I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want to do anything about it either. And there's a great quite a guy called Chris Gillen. He's a recovered alcoholic, gambling addict, and he said, and it's so true, I felt I was too young to quit. So I started when I was 21, right? So I was losing all this money, but I was still at uni. And then when I finished uni, I came out and started my career in recruitment, in sales, started to do quite well. And it just didn't matter to me. I was in my 20s. At that time, I was young and single. It was like, it's my money. I'm going to do what I want with it. I'm too young to quit. It doesn't matter. It's not going to cause any damage. So you can sort of delude yourself into thinking that it's not doing any harm, even though it is, because you justify reasons to continue. You're never going to get to the stage, to answer your question, sorry. You're never going to get to the stage of, being aware of it, accepting it, or being self-aware, unless you give up yourself. So addiction is, like you said, be in isolation and, being lonely. Addiction thrives in isolation, but the addict will often not be isolated. Like I was, for most of my addiction, I was in relationships and, living with people, but I was still feeling really lonely, because they didn't know how bad my addiction was, or even I had an addiction.
Would it be like, 'cause I'm with you on this, I can really there's a lot of blokes that I know they're just proper sociable fellas, but would it be the act itself is quite secretive, so they won't be seen to putting on as many bets in front of people rather than by themselves? So they do it more not around people as much as if they were around people. And you mentioned something amazing. I think it's a really, really controversial principle in today's age, and I don't want to go too spiritual either, but that you said something very powerful, and it's like you die to self, and that's one of the biggest principles in Christianity. Is there's a scripture that says, I no longer live, I've been crucified with Christ, and it's he that lives within me. So it's like you're essentially saying, I've died to self. And it's one of the hardest things to hear or think of, is that either in this case, a part of you has to die, which is completely become part of who you are, your identity. Or in Christianity's case, literally, you've got to just give it all to him. And I don't want to make it sound like a mountainous task for our viewers who are struggling, but it's it's like a transaction. It's almost like a bet within itself. It's a gamble in itself to come to the crossroads and go, I'm going to stop this. However, if I do stop this, what's the risk element? What are the benefits, or what am I going to lose? You know what I'm saying? I think that's a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, it's fear. It's fear because it's your, gambling became my therapy. And it because again, there is scientific, biological reasons behind it. It does release the dopamine, like you said. So it's not, it's an illness. It's an illness of the mind, any addiction. So behavioral addictions or substance addictions are the same thing. They're public health issues and they're an illness. So you shouldn't feel guilty about it. And like you said about I'm not religious, but what you said about the Christianity stuff, I say it all the time, recovery is rebirth. So it's I genuinely, that's what I feel as I was reborn. I was living a life for 12 years and, on the surface of it, I rose, like professionally. I rose to director of a company. I was, had good friends, good relationships, but under the surface, I was dealing with this debilitating addiction, living a lie, essentially, because you say it's so secretive. I put a video out, for anyone who's not seen my stuff, I do like TikTok videos and try and make them mostly like quite light-hearted comedy type videos to try and get more people to accept it rather than be like, well, I'm not going to discuss, it's too serious. And I did a video of me on the toilet. I'm sure everyone wants to see that, but because a lot of my bets were placed on the toilet, right? I would get home from work. My partner would get home from work and, do whatever. And I was straight in the toilet, and putting my bets on for the evening.
Having a poo,
so,
right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. taking a long time as well. It's tough one.
Like, yeah. He's always going for a poo at this time and it's ages.
Yeah. I mean, that might have been built into it, but, but that's just one very small example of the secretive elements, there's another story I tell about, I was in Vegas and was deep in debt, and my mates were at the blackjack table and I ran out of money, so I went into the toilets in the Bellagio, one of the great hotels of the world, and I'm in the toilet in Bellagio getting a Wonga loan. Can you remember Wonga from a few years back?
Like
payday loans.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, payday loans, right? So I was in the toilet of the Bellagio on the Wi-Fi, getting a Wonka loan to come back to the table. Obviously didn't tell anyone, but I've just put enough of £1,000 of completely fake money that is going to cause me way more issues to just carry on gambling.
Wow.
It's the secrecy. And the problem with gambling addiction is that it allows you to be secretive. But I could carry on my professional career and I could carry on my relationships and friendships. No one ever knew the full extent of it. No one, not a living soul, not my partners, not my brother, not my parents, best friend, nobody knew. Whereas if I was an alcoholic, at some point, someone would be like, right, you can get on the breath, or okay, slurring his words, or whatever.
You smell
right?
it. It's like that yeasty. You can smell it on them after a while.
Yeah, and because obviously it more obviously affects your outward behavior. It's easier to spot an alcoholic than a gambling addict. It's that thing like you said. You probably know some lads with it. You could walk in a changing room on a Saturday morning, and again, you could smell it on some people, maybe if they've been drinking or they're thrown up, maybe even, if they're particularly hungover. Like you would have an idea as to who has been on a drink the night before or even in the morning. But there'll be lads there, like you say, and they'll probably just say to you, yeah, no, I'm just texting the missus, she's going to pick me up at 6. But they're putting on 100 quid on a spin of black or red before they go out to play. You don't know that. It's so easy to hide, which is why it's so dangerous.
I would even argue that, I know we said it's quite secretive, but I've seen a lot of lads in front of me just sit there in the pub and go on Sky Bet or Paddy Power, Coral, whatever, and not that we're promoting these people, and they would just chill, like they'd be sat there like talking about, and they just go on their phone like people do, like you in social circles, in pub, whatever. Today, people just go on their phones naturally, and I've seen loads of them just go on their app and just put a bet on, and it's like, oh, okay. But I just I'm not fussed by it, because it's like, I don't want them to feel ashamed around me or be like, oh, uncomfortable. If they want to put a bet on, put a bet on, and it doesn't affect me. I'm going to go on a side note, really randomly. I was watching on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. I was reminded about Jay-Z Linkin Park's collab. So I was watching it, and it was 2004 when it happened, And at the concert, no one had a freaking phone in their hand. They're all just absolutely just with them going mad. And
Living
no
in the
one
moment,
had a phone.
yeah.
In the moment.
Yeah.
And my miss
Yeah.
went, oh my gosh, look at them. They're not on their phone. And I was just like, yeah, today everyone's just like that, like looking at it through the phone. And you're like, oh, mate, sorry. It just reminded me like when people go on their phone to have a bet, like, again,
I thought
that in
something similar
itself
the
is an
other day,
addiction.
yeah.
Being on your phone
Massively
all the
so.
time.
Yeah.
Social media.
Yeah, I thought funny you say that, because I saw there was a program on over Christmas, documentary on Liam Gallagher. I think it's called As I Was, whatever, and it just followed Gallagher around for like a year. And they were looking at some of the old Oasis concerts, and it was the same thing. You know, people in the 90s at Nebworth, whatever, they were just there. And he's attracting a whole new audience, which is great, of, you know, teenagers and stuff now, but they're all there just filming it, and they're not there at all. They're going to watch it through, you know, a 4-inch screen when they get home. But it's funny you say about, you know, your mates putting a bet on and stuff, and, you know, you're not worried about it. And you probably shouldn't be, because I'm not, you know, I'm not anti-gambling, because most people can gamble safely. I can drink safely, you know, but I know alcoholics. I'm friends with alcoholics who can't have one drink. I can stop after 2 or 3 drinks and I'm fine, because that's never been my crutch. That's not to say, obviously, I've not, you know, had nights where I've gone way too heavy. Of course I have, but you know, that's never been my thing. So I completely get people can do it safely.
Yeah.
But there's almost an allowance the gambling addict will give themselves, because, like anything, there's a certain amount which is like socially acceptable. So I could put a bet on out with my mates, and I could probably say it once, you know, and I'd just be like, whatever, and they say, oh, you know, what are you doing? So I'm just gonna, you know, put a bet. It's Chelsea Arsenal at 8. I'm just gonna have a little flutter on that, a little bet on that. But then if I was putting another bet on and another bet on, I would, in myself, regardless, I'm not even sure what they thought or if they cared or whatever, but I thought, like, I can allow myself to say I'm betting once, but in reality I was betting all the time. And it'd be the same if I was going out for dinner with, you know, my missus or whatever at the time. If I would go to the toilet, I would always take my phone. That's not, you know, that's not for any other reason than to put a bet on, you know. And it makes you such a liar that essentially my behavior, what I was doing, was being as unfaithful to my partners as if I was cheating on them. I wasn't cheating on them. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't cheating on with another girl or whatever, but in the same way a lad might take his phone away from the table because he doesn't want his girl to see someone message him or whatever, I wasn't worried about that, because none of that was going on. I was taking my phone away because I needed to check, well, I've got a goal before the 28th minute. I need to know if Sunderland have scored. You know, but the process is the same. Like, you're being unfaithful.
It's such an amazing perspective to have, because like a lot of people just don't see it this way, and because you've had this trial in your life and it mastered you and you were the slave, and now you've switched it, but you have to be aware that when you become the master, you have to keep the slave enslaved. So it's not like gone. It's not like, you know,
no,
it doesn't exist. You know, it's still going to be a battle for you in different varieties. But yeah, I just think it's so good for people to hear this, like a guy coming on Enlightened and saying these things, because it's, as you say, it's so subtle. You don't feel like it's much of a problem as other things, so you nullify it, invalidate it. And I think that's really important. We need to talk about relationships, because I've heard of blokes that have lost relationships as a result. Like, so you mentioned like ex-partners or whatever. So what was it that for them that made them go, I can't really do this anymore because of this gambling? Like, how, if you don't mind sharing with the viewers, like what did that kind of look like? Because I think guys need to hear this before it gets, you know, to the point where they think they're risking it. Oh, she'll be all right. Oh yeah, she might see this, but oh, she'll be all right. Like we can't, because sometimes like we've got to love and care for ourselves, but then for some fellas, they need like foresight and the boundary of other people and the damage it could do. So then eventually they can start reinvested in themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's because addiction makes you very selfish. So it makes you very selfish with your time, with your money, and with your affection, because you're constantly you had a one of your chats with Elliot from MFF, MMF, sorry, music football
You said it right, MFF, yeah.
yeah. And another guy was introduced to us by James, shout out to James Carter again. But it makes you really selfish. And in the chat you had with Elliot, he was speaking about like suppressing emotions. And that is essentially what an addict is, whether they realize it or not, is looking for. So you almost don't feel any emotions as an addict, because all of your emotions, or generally, are fake. Because it's not to say there wasn't true love there, because there completely was, like with my ex-partners and stuff, but I didn't know how to demonstrate that or display that a lot of the time. And the only times really I was often able to were if I was on a real high because I'd won a bet, or if I was on a real low because I'd won a bet and I wanted reassurance, or I wanted love, or I was on a high and I wanted to give love. Right. So, it's not to say again that the real emotions weren't there, but they were only expressed often as a result of your mood, which as an addict is always determined by the addiction.
Yeah.
Living with addiction is really, really, really hard. Really hard.
Yeah.
Living with an addict is probably even harder, because you don't know what to do. You don't know how to help the person. And you're having to deal with their mood swings, with their emotional unavailability, with their distance and stuff. And that's, for me, part of the journey I've been on. So I've been clean for nearly 13 months.
That's amazing, man.
Thanks, mate.
No, class. Honestly, massive respect. It's amazing.
But you learn in that, the journey I'm still on and stuff is, it's so important that you forgive yourself, and that you disassociate yourself from the illness. It's like this, and I can sleep. It took a long time after recovery, but I can sleep easy now because I know I'm a good guy, and I'm trying to help people with gambling garden stuff. But it took a long time for me to get to that point, because the shame and the guilt of the addiction was so strong, and you tried to make amends for it and stuff, and you can't, because the addiction is so destructive. So you've got to learn how to, again, sounds a bit wanky, but you generally have to learn how to love yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because addiction is self-harm. There'll be different reasons why for everyone, but addiction is self-harm. It's a form of self-harm. And if you don't really love yourself, you're not going to be able to have a proper connection with somebody else, because even if you feel the love for someone, you're not going to be able to give them the love that you're capable of giving, because you're harming yourself with the addiction.
That's huge. That is massive, because it's all good and well saying, oh, well, this is what I did. This is the effect it had on that person. And this is where it got to the point where they couldn't stay in a relationship, whatever. But I think what you did beautifully is that you actually just said it from your perspective, because you weren't that person. And I think by you sharing that is what you're fully in control of. And this is good for the viewers to really hear that they can control only what you've kind of elaborated on. And I think that's important. So like when you got to the pinnacle of your gambling, like how much money was it when you got to the point where it was like, oh my gosh, I need to stop? Did it get to the pinnacle in terms of how much debt you were in and you went, right, you started to make the adjustments of being self-aware? Or was it like you were aware, but then you're going to stop, but then your betting came a little bit more sporadic, like it just kind of stopped a little? How did it work? Like how much was it? Or how did it work for you when you got that turning point?
Yeah, so I got myself into, I mean, it's about 20,000 pounds of gambling debt, purely gambling debt. And I was lucky enough that I was able to pay that off through my work. You know, I was fortunate that I was, progressed into quite a well-paid job and stuff, and I managed to clear the debt with the help of, not even partners knowing, but just the fact that I wanted to do it, for the future or whatever. So I managed to pay it off, but still deep within addiction. And then for me, when it really escalated financially was, I mean, 20K debt is bad enough, but when it really escalated for me financially was when I'd actually cleared the debt, because then it was open season for me. It was, and I was earning more than I'd ever earned before. And because I wasn't in debt now, it's like, great, this is all disposable. This is all playing money, all of it. So once I'd paid for the rent and whatever else, it's like, right, all of this now can be used for gambling. And it just completely spiraled and got completely out of hand really quickly. So in the 12-year addiction, it was probably the last maybe 4 years, say maybe from 2015, 16 to 2019, that most of the money was lost. And when I, finally, was strong enough to quit gambling, I was asked, I had addiction therapy sessions, and the therapist, asked, how much have you lost? How much do you feel you've lost? I actually put a tweet out about it really early on when I started Gambling Guide, and I keep the tweet there as almost like a, warning to myself. I estimated my losses were 150,000 over 12 years, 150K, which if they were would have been obscene. That's an obscene amount of money to lose. But the actual amount was 447,000. So it was three times, I lost 3 times more than I deluded myself into thinking. And that's just online. That's not, I've been to Vegas 8 or 9 times. So you add that on, it's 500,000. But I was, convincing myself, deluding myself, trundling through life thinking I'd lost 150K. Let's say three times that amount. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, brother. It can be quite tricky to like go there, and you're almost like you're there in your mind. So massive respect to go there with that. Something you said you got to a point where it was about, I think, 3 or 4 years before you really did quit for good. And I thought that was really good how you've shared, that side of your story, because I think a lot of people who say are addicted or feel like they've got an issue with something that they keep going back to in life, and then they see others who have like overcome it, and they look at them like that's like just unrealistic for them, and they see like, oh yeah, it's all right for you, you did it and you just stopped first time. Like people who quit smoking straight away, they've got that mindset and it's just like bang, cold turkey. And I love it how you identified it, but it took you another 3 or 4 years to actually get to the point where you are to date, where it's been 13 months per se. So yeah, I really love how you weren't just like an instant transition is the word I want to say. I don't want to use the word fix, but I just think a lot of people can relate to that and say, look, lads, it takes time. It takes a lot of resistance, and it's a process. Like, it doesn't just happen overnight. And I think it's great for viewers to see that, like, change doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't at all. And you know, if addiction was easy to recover from, it wouldn't be addiction. You know, it'd just be habit. But there's a big difference, right, between addiction and habit. And I tried to quit loads of times, but I didn't really. You know, if I'm honest, I didn't really, and inevitably then I relapsed and I'd start again because, you know, the first person who has to believe it is you, and you have to believe that, you know, it's like the 12 steps addiction recovery program that Alcoholics Anonymous use, Gamblers Anonymous use, narcotics, etc. It's the 12 steps, and you know, one of the first steps is, you know, you need to believe that change is possible. You know, you need to accept that your life is chaotic, and you know, there is another way, there is another life to live. And for gambling addiction, I break it down into 3 things. So it's acceptance that you've got a problem, which I had, as say, probably like 2 years into addiction, but then I was, you know, live in addiction for another 10 years. So it's acceptance, then it's accountability, and then it's access. But accountability is the main thing, because even though I accepted it and again tried to quit loads of times, because addiction is a form of self-harm, I never really cared that I was letting myself down, because I was self-harming anyway by losing all the money and placing the bets. But accountability for me, the turning point and why I finally, you know, was able to quit in the end was, you know, I was completely honest with my partner at the time. I'm going to say completely honest. I mean, even then I wasn't completely honest, but I started to try to be honest, you know, and then I was accountable to her. And it's not to say that the recovery was linked to a person, but you do need a reason, you know, and and I think that's what people find it hard. It's like, don't put all the pressure, you know, just to think, right, I can quit. You know, you do need to link it to an external reason. And I know this is, you know, we're February now, but, you know, I don't know how people are dealing with their New Year's resolutions and stuff. But people, you know, I hate it when people are like, oh, you know, it's like, right, my New Year's resolution is to do this. And people are like, oh, just start today. It's like, well, cool. But external factors help, right?
Yeah.
They help it. And if you have something like January the 1st, it's like, right, so I'm going to be clean in 2021. That can help people. So you need accountability to something or someone, and that will help your recovery. And then access is, you know, people can follow my page for more information and stuff, or send me a message. There are self-exclusion systems. There are, you know, professional counseling services available.
Right.
You know, there's all sorts of support available, which I'm not. You know, I'm just a guy with lived experience, trying to help people and trying to inspire, motivate people. You know, I'm not a professional, you know, addiction counselor by any means, but hopefully, by people seeing me, and you know, like, I love your channel, mate, because you say it's just real men, real talk. Hopefully, people just see us chatting now and think, okay, look, if I'm being honest, some of what he said I relate to.
Exactly. And I've got my workplace. It's really like, how do I put this? It's uniform service, so it's really quite, I wouldn't say old in terms of its approaches to mental health. Anyway, the point is, the leadership are amazing because they've given me like full shebang to like go in with mental health. Like we've got 12 out of 100 mental health level 3 first aid trained. In fact, it's right here in front of me. Here you are. Got me level 3.
Look at that. I'll say what on me.
Go on,
yeah, nice one.
So we've done that, but what the point I'm getting to is I've created a questionnaire. It's completely anonymous, and it's done on Microsoft Notes, I think it is called. Basically, at the end of it, it collates all the data, puts into charts. It's class. Couldn't recommend it more if you want to do a questionnaire. And I thought that it would be like 10 people max, because 10% is a great number, right? They say in questionnaires, if you get 10%, that's about the average feedback. But we got like 35-40% back, which is class, and it's predominantly a male-based workplace. And the interesting point that I'm making here is, I asked the question. I said, would you prefer, again, 3 options, would you prefer, if you are struggling with a mental health issue, that you speak to your senior, or you speak to a mental health first aid trained person, or you speak to a colleague who you know has gone through the similar mental health issue that they've overcome and that you can relate to? And most people said the last one, about the person that they know they've been through it and they can relate to. And I just want to say to you, to encourage you, I know you've got your full-time job. I know that's where you're at in your life. But I really believe everything you're doing is for a reason. I believe the trials you've been through with gambling happen for a reason in your life. And I believe, mate, 100% that your destiny isn't just, oh, I'm Nick and I do recruitment. I really believe strongly that in the future, you are gonna see an exponential amount of men and some women come your way to get freedom. So I want to say to you, get ready. You are getting ready, you're preparing, but get ready, because I think it's going to happen, and I think you're going to see some miraculous stories, mate. I think your ability to choose to love yourself and to make that change in your life, I think it's going to set a lot of people free, mate. And I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see you in like 5 years' time and what you're up to. It's brilliant, mate. So don't write yourself off either. You said about these therapists and they're professional. Everything you're doing is making impact. And I'm doing a level 5 right now in CBT, which is very, very powerful stuff. And I think you'd be really good at it. So what I will do is provoke you slightly. Look into it. I think it's Learn Direct. And if it's manageable, just have a little look into it. CBT, because you can be like a counselor, a life coach, a therapist, whatever. So yeah, man, I wanted to encourage you with that, because I think you're doing
it's
brilliant.
Just so what the reason the gambling guard stuff took off and then I started doing the videos was because one of the tweets, it went viral, and it had 30,000 likes and 20,000 retweets or whatever. And it was at that point then it gave me the confidence to put my face to it and to be like, right, this is who I am. And it's not even for me about making it a career or whatever. It's just about, for me, it's about character. It's like I don't want it to sound cheesy or whatever, but it's being a good person, and speaking openly, encouraging other people to speak openly. And I know, hundreds of people have messaged over the past years looking for help and stuff. And, I'm always careful to make sure I direct them to the professionals, but at the same time, I also do want to chat to them and, because I know I can help them with my own experiences, and there's power in men just chatting together and being open. And again, that's what addiction never allowed you to do, because you're always covering up, you're always secretive, you're not being your authentic self. So it gives you so much freedom. And that's what I want to say to people who are in addiction is there is a better life. There's a better life. It is a scary life, a scary life, and it's a challenging life, and recovery is hard, but trust me, it's so much easier than addiction. And you know, it all starts, as basic as it sounds, you just got to talk. I didn't know how to talk about my feelings and emotions until I was 33, 34 years old.
Wow.
You know, and you had a guy, Josh Burkett, Josh Burkett, 16 years old, talking like a pro. You know, I have so much respect for him. So much respect, because, and that's really promising. That's why like your channel is so useful, and you know, hopefully the people that follow me get some use from it and stuff as well. Like anyone in our field, it's like, look, people like Josh at the age of 16, people I'm trying to get through to at uni or whatever. It's like, you know, that's amazing. You know, if people can be that open and honest at that age, you know, that's
what you want. Yeah,
you know, so
this lad's you can't pull the wool over his eyes. He's very switched on, and he's had a lot of trials. You know, he's lost his father already, younger age. So yeah, he's an incredible young man, and he's working with us closely. We're going to start up. In fact, let's announce it now. We're going to do something called enhancement. So we're sticking with the vibe of in like the shows enlisted. We do a men's chat group. So we want to do an enhancement, and our heart, Nick, is, and for the viewers, is to equip young men just like Josh, so they've got that resilience and mental strength. Because we lost Jeremy Whiston, a young boy who was about 16, 17. He got released by Man City and dropped by the wayside. We literally just found out these past few weeks a young man, Man United, got dropped. No support whatsoever. You know, and it happens, sadly. We're not here to slag off the FA or the Football League or these clubs, but there is such a lack of mental health, self-awareness and resilience culture, and it needs to change. So we are going to try and, well, we're already starting to put a program together. So it's going to be 2 lots of 6 weeks program to just skill them and equip them. So on camera, I'm just going to say how it is. I want to get in touch with you, and I think a topic, because we're collating all these topics, like pressure of the media, image, social media usage, you know, setbacks from injury or lack of confidence, all these kind of things. But I think it's massive, because in football, the culture, gambling is huge. I don't care what anyone says. I know it's huge. So we'd like to have further chats with you about. I think if young lads in academies have you come in and just saying it how it is, like, this is how much I lost, this is where it's at, I think you'll be able to completely get through to a lot of young lads more than any of us lot, mate. So yeah, we'll hit you up with that in the future.
Yeah, look, we'll definitely, you know, whether it's through the James stuff or, you know, now we're connected one-to-one, mate, definitely keep in touch.
Man.
And that's you know, it's basic, like the suicide stuff. You know, I've read so many, like, gambling is the addiction with the highest level of suicide of any addiction, and unfortunately most of the suicides are men, and generally young men. You know, they reckon it's about 500 a year gambling related suicides, and you know, my mentality on it is I'm going to recover loudly to try and help others die, you know, so that others don't die quietly, you know, because I was there in my journey, you know, and suicidal thoughts, dark thoughts, both in addiction and in recovery. But, you know, like, every storm runs out of rain, and I'm all about being positive and opportunity. And there's so much opportunity in recovery to be a better person that it's so easy, you know, to go the other way. You know, with addiction and stuff. So yeah, look, it's the more any of us can do to get guys talking, mate, it's brilliant.
100%. So, yeah. And this episode's been sick. We need to trademark that quote you just had. That is a banger. What was it? Every storm runs out of rain.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's probably 70s Motown lyric somewhere. I would have thought,
it's a banger.
It's true, right? It's so true. And when you're in the eye of the storm, you can't see that, you know. And as I say, like, I've been there. I've been in the darkest places with stuff, and And unfortunately, others haven't, and we've lost them, for no good reason. Yeah, that's what drives me, So yeah.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you so much, and viewers, I really hope you've got tons of stuff out of that today. This was my man Gambling Guard, Nick. He's top guy, and I really wish him well and the best. So before we say bye to you viewers, coming on the screen right now, if you have not subscribed to us yet, make sure you do, and we can get out on YouTube as far and wide. We're on a small journey at the minute with Like the Shadows. We're not even a year old, and we made the 100 club already, so I'm quite pleased that people are plugging in and people are saying, yeah, I don't mind taking a minute to set up an account and click subscribe. Not a problem, Rory. So if you could do that, that'd be class. Social media, we've put Nick's socials on already throughout this episode, so yeah, make sure you not subscribe, make sure you click follow on his Instagram and Twitter. We'll just put it on the screen right now for you one last time. If you haven't, just press pause on this video, click on your socials. It will take you 20 seconds to smash out both. Give him a follow. I'm telling you right now, you'll love his socials. They're they're better than ours. So and yeah, I just want to say this has been a class episode 23. Make sure that you join us next time. We appreciate you guys. Make sure that you share this video on your socials, because you might never know who could be on your friend list that's literally struggling in the shadows with gambling, and they see this and they see a bloke like Nick, dead sound guy, level-headed, totally relatable, and they can really start that process of recovery. So please make sure that you share it. Have a great week, guys, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, Nick, mate.
Cheers, man. Thanks.